I'm joined now by James Prestwich, who's Director of Policy and External Affairs at the CIH. James, thanks very much for joining me. Is it fair to say that the way we view our homes has changed over the past couple of years?
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. So today I'm really keen to look forward, but I think it's also really important to reflect on what we've been through. And it's very difficult to talk about the future without talking about the pandemic. And what that really did was it really magnified the importance of home to people as a sanctuary, as somewhere that provides security. But it also highlighted that whilst that works really well for some people, there are other people through our housing system that don't do so well or aren't as well served by the housing system. So there's issues there around affordability, both rent, mortgage, and also around energy and how we heat our homes. So what we saw throughout the pandemic was that we had a housing system that worked well for some in providing that sanctuary and worked far less well for others. And as a nation, we need to reflect on that and learn the lessons from that as we think about how we build a housing system that's safe for the future.
I guess at the moment, many people are thinking about the cost of living, and those housing costs, energy costs are going up and up. What are housing associations and councils doing to help?
One of the big challenges is that we have the oldest and the least energy efficient housing stock in Europe. So straight away, we're dealing with some pretty big challenges. And when you layer on top of that cost of living crisis, we can really see why it's such a challenging environment for people living in affordable homes.
We're all being told to live greener, aren't we? But many people will say that's just not cost effective enough. How can we become carbon neutral? And what are you doing to help that?
Yeah, one of the key challenges for us as a nation, and indeed for the global community. So about a fifth of CO2 emissions in the UK come from our housing stock. So there's a real challenge there for us that we need to meet head on. And there's a big role to play for social landlords in helping to decarbonise our stock. There's also a big role for government too in this. And some of the moves that government have made around the Social Housing Decarbonisation Fund have been really, really welcome. But what's missing at the moment is a really clear roadmap for how, as a nation, we're going to decarbonise our stock. There's some pretty stark figures about the cost of all of this. So this is going to take significant investment over a number of years. There's some analysis from Savills that puts the figure to decarbonise and get our housing stock in its totality to net zero at around £330 billion. That's a huge amount of money. I don't need to tell anyone that. And in order to do that, we need that clear plan. Social landlords are taking a lead on net zero in particular. So we already have examples of landlords who are delivering new homes to a standard far above that is currently required, and are making real progress in getting their stock to energy efficiency rating C by 2030. I would suggest that the sector as a whole is ideally placed to work with government to start to drive that agenda across our housing stock.
James, we're talking about homes, but of course a lot of people will be worried about homelessness. Do you think that's going to be on the rise as we see living costs rise?
Yes, absolutely. And there's some analysis that shows that homelessness is set to rise by a third over the next 2 years. And that is a really significant challenge, and probably the most visible sign of the housing crisis that we face as a nation. And over the last couple of years, there's been some really positive progress on homelessness, but we're at a point in time now where there is a danger that we will row back from some of those positive interventions, and that will further exacerbate the problem. During the pandemic, government made some changes to the welfare system, which were really, really beneficial in helping to combat homelessness. So the uplift of the local housing allowance and an increase in universal credit payments. It's very clear that we need to do more, and it looks as though government have rowed back on some of the promises that were made, and some of the promises and the policies that really helped tackle homelessness during the worst ravages of the pandemic. What we would like to see is government working with the sector to have a very clear roadmap for how we look to solve the homelessness crisis in the country.
James Prestwich, thanks very much.
Thank you.